Well, hello there, and welcome to this tutorial on the Shulker-based furnace array with 128 furnaces. This is a full block-by-block tutorial on how you can build this furnace array. If you haven't noticed from the timestamp, it is over an hour long because this is a very complicated machine. I am releasing a companion video at the same time. It is a quick tips guide, so if you want to use something like Lightmatica or the World Download and you're not interested in a full block-by-block tutorial, then that one has guides on how you can do stuff like align the hopper minecarts, how many items go into each dropper, and then it goes through each of the circuits and shows what they do and how you can test them if you run into any problems. That's going to be a much shorter video, and the link is in the description for that. But if you were looking for a block-by-block tutorial, you have come to the right place. I've tested this furnace array in Minecraft versions 1.14 and 1.15, and there's not any kind of tricky redstone or anything like that. So in theory, this should work in any version of Minecraft that has observers and shulker boxes. So it should work in versions 1.11 or above, although I haven't tested it in the older versions. To operate this furnace array, you would first place shulker boxes full of fuel into this chest right here. And this indicator light right here means that there's enough fuel in the system for it to operate. If this light is ever off, then the system will not run at all. It cannot run without fuel. And then this light right here means that there's an extra shulker box of fuel that's in reserve, and so that means you have a decent amount of fuel. And if this light ever goes on, that actually means you have too much fuel. That actually means there's something like 50 shulker boxes full of fuel, and if you put more in, you might back up this item elevator, but you'll almost never see that light go on. And then the next thing we want to do is we want to place smeltable items into this chest right here, and this light right here will indicate that the system is running. It'll take it a few seconds for it to get started. There it goes, and you'll see that it loads up minecarts full of items and then sends them all out. That's a fuel cart right there, and then when this reaches 128 items exactly, it'll send it on its way, and then all the smelting will be done automatically. When the process is finished, your items will be right here. This is from a few test runs, and then you may occasionally have to put extra empty shulker boxes into this chest right here. When this light is off, that means there's not quite enough shulker boxes in the system. When it goes on, that means there's at least 20 shulker boxes in reserve, and that should go on shortly. There it goes. And the shulker boxes from your smeltable items will actually be recycled down into the shulker box loaders. And so normally you won't have to put too many of those, but occasionally, since there are two shulker box loaders, if you put one shulker box with the items in there, they get split across the two shulker box loaders, and you'd end up with two shulker boxes at the end, and you may need to put one of them back down into that system. And then over here, your empty shulker boxes from your fuel, they would come out into that chest right there. This furnace array only works with fuel sources that'll smelt at least 8 items per fuel item. So at the time that I'm making this video, there were only these 5 types of fuel. Lava buckets are not included because you can only fit 5 lava buckets per minecart, so those will not work at all. What works the best is charcoal. Using this furnace array in combination with a tree farm, you can produce many shulker boxes worth of wood, smelt them all very quickly, and then have an excellent renewable fuel source. That's what I definitely recommend. Although you can use any of these types of fuel, and you can actually mix and match them. You can put up to 3 different types of fuel in the system at once. If you put more than 3, you might run into problems, but you can run up to 3 at a time. But again, I highly recommend charcoal is what works the best. It's really important to note that a lot of the credit for this design goes to Ilmango. He designed the shulker box unloader that's used in this orange circuit and the light gray circuit down there. He also designed the timing circuit that's in brown right there, and the 4-speed shulker box loader. There's 2 of them down here in yellow. Those are Ilmango's design, as well as the cyan circuit here. Just a lot of this design was done by Ilmango as part of his 1,000+ furnace array that he built on SciCraft. And what I did is I reverse engineered those from his videos. He never released a world download or a tutorial or anything like that, so I ran through his videos and reverse engineered those designs and then used them to put it together and made a more survival friendly 128 furnace array. And that's what I've done. I've added some of my own circuits. There's my own circuit to decide when this fuel card is sent out, and the lighting circuits and a few other things, item elevators and whatnot, are my design. But still, a lot of the credit for this goes to Ilmango. And I put off releasing a video for this, a tutorial, for quite some time because I didn't want to step on his toes if he wanted to release a tutorial or anything like that. And it doesn't look like he's going to. This has been a very popular video was when I built this in survival, and a lot of people ask questions about it. So now I'm taking the opportunity to release a tutorial for it. The base footprint of this machine is 23 blocks wide by 29 blocks deep, and it's going to be 11 blocks tall. There's also a small section on this left side where it's going to be 2 blocks wider, so a total of 25 blocks, but only underground, and the underground is also going to go 12 blocks deep. And this right here is the ground level. We'll place these blocks later. This is just a placeholder so that you know that this is the ground level. This is where you will enter and interact with the machine, and the furnaces are going to go 1 block higher than that. So we'll come over to this back side right here, and 2 blocks from the back, you want to place a furnace 1 block above the ground level, like so. And we will eventually place 15 more furnaces down the row like this, but don't do that just yet. Instead, we're going to come down 3 blocks, so a gap of 2 blocks between the furnace and this floor down here, and we're going to extend this out 15 blocks instead. But before we do that, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The 8th block needs to be powered. And you can actually just use a regular block and power it with a switch from below if you want. It's much more visual if you can see that it's powered with a redstone block. You can use whichever you like though. And then we're going to come out another more 8 blocks. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then we'll come back to this side. We'll place another block on this end and then come out 4 more blocks and then turn. So there should be 3 blocks right here. And then we'll place another 16 blocks, making sure that the power block is in the same place here. So that's 16 there. And then place 1 more block on this side. And this time we're going to come out 2 blocks and then turn and do the same thing. Come back over to this side and do the same thing here. We're going to come out 4 more blocks and then turn. And we're going to do this until we've got 8 total rows of 16 blocks, or we'll end up with these U-shape ears, or N, or whatever you want to call it. We're going to end up with 4 of these. Once you get that all laid out, you want to come down to this end. Note that this end doesn't extend out that extra block right there. And you want to place 2 temporary blocks like so, and then a slab like so. And you want a block on the back side of it so it tells the rails to go that way. And so we can remove these temporary blocks. We're going to come out another 4 blocks like so till we're right lined up with this one. We want to come down a block like so. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 like so. And then we want to come up 1 more block. We want to power this one like so. And then come over the rest of the way and join this up like so. And then we want to start placing our rails. So the rails, all of these will be powered rails. Don't go cheap on these rails because you will want, this timing is actually really, really important. You want to make sure that everything reaches where it needs to in time. So I do not suggest going cheap on the rails. On the sides, however, there's no power. So just use regular rails for these ends like I've done like so. And also down there. Rails all the way down here. Rails here. And so on through the whole thing. And then when we get over here, this last one is actually going to be a detector rail. Like so. The rest of these are going to be powered rails like normal. And then over here, power rails as well. Actually, we want to power this one from the second block here. We want to place a block right there. And if you do want to use this as a solid block like so, make sure you're powering it from underneath because there will be rails coming down above this block and on this side of the block as well. So it's got to be powered from underneath. I'm going to use the redstone again like normal, and then the rest of the way powered like so. And come up here, and then this corner and these other 2 rails are all going to be normal rails because that one won't reach that. And this is all timed perfectly. And then fill in the rest of these rails as well. Once you've got the rails set up like this, you need to place hoppers on top of all of the powered rails on these U-shapes right here. So there should be 16 to a row, and there should be 8 rows. Should be a total of 128 hoppers you will need for this segment. So just hoppers pointing straight down into the rails like so, all the way down, all the way across, all the way to here. And this detector rail as well will also have a hopper on top of it, like so. When you're done, the hopper should look like this. I've removed the measurement stick on the side so we can see what we're doing a little better. And then the next thing we want to do is we want to come down and place all the furnaces. Furnaces will just go on top of the hoppers. So you have to shift click to place the furnaces on top of the hoppers. I recommend for this row you have them facing outward. And then on this row you want to have them facing inward. And then on this row you have those facing in towards these ones. We're going to end up with hoppers on the back sides of these furnaces, on these insides like this. So I recommend that in these rows of 2 that you have them facing in towards each other like so. And then on this one right here, have them facing outward. That way you'll be able to see what's going on with the furnace faces. You can actually walk down these rows and see what's going on. And then we want to place all the furnaces going all the way down on all of these rows, 128 furnaces. Next, you're going to come through and place hoppers on the tops of all the furnaces, like so, and on the backs of the furnaces, pointing into the back of the furnace as well. And so again, on this side, it'll be there, and the top. Same thing over here, pointing into the back, on the top, all the way across, all the way down. So now we've got all the hoppers pointing out of all the furnaces. This right here is the front side, and this is where the carts are going to first come in, so we'll worry about that a little bit later. Instead, we're going to come out to this back side over here, and we're going to place a solid block on the end of this hopper. We're going to come up a block and back a block like so, and then over, and then down a block again right there so that those join up. Place a powered block right there instead of that one, and on this one, we're actually going to come down a block, remove this one, and then over, and then back like so. So this is the pattern that you're going to do all the way down on this side. And then on this side, we can just place blocks right there. That's not going to be a problem at all. But on this one, we actually want to come down a block again, remove this block, and then out a block, and over, and then back in like so. No power on this side, and then again, this is the pattern that you want to do all the way down on this side. And then when you reach this end over here, just go ahead and extend this by 2 on both the top and the bottom. On the top one, there's a couple temporary blocks. Place a block up here, remove these 2. So basically the rail is going to come in, the cart's going to hit this, and it's going to drop down onto that rail. So those should be perfectly aligned so that it drops down onto that rail. And then we can come back over and we can start placing our rails, powered rails all the way down like so. And this one's going to be powered. This one is a turn, so it can't be powered. Powered there, turn, and then powered. Like so. And then down on this row, powered, and powered, not powered, powered again, and then you want to place a powered block right there to power all of these rails. You can actually do it like so if you want just a solid block, and then put a switch on top of it like so. And we'll come down to this end, and then these ones can't be powered, any of those. Powered over that way, and then this end, this one can't be powered either, and then turn and up, and then powered all the way down like so. And then again, power this block right here, and I'm going to swap this one out as well, all the way down. When you get to the end over here, don't place any rails on either of these blocks just yet. Instead, you want to come down 1 block and then over 2 more. We don't want this block right here, so we're going to go 2 blocks, down 2 blocks. We're going to come down here, come down another block, then come down another block until we're joined up with this row right here. 1 block before that one goes down. And then we'll come all the way over here, and then 1 block before this one goes up, we're going to turn, and we're going to place 5 additional blocks. So that's 1, second one's powered, 3, 4, 5, total of 6 blocks in this row. Then we're going to turn and place 1, second block's powered, 2, 3, 4, so 4 more blocks, total of 5 blocks in this row. We're going to come up a block like so, second one's powered, place 2 more blocks, total of 4, and then we're going to turn, place a total of 5 blocks or 4 additional blocks in this row. Going to come up a block, going to come up another block. This one's going to be powered right here, and then we're going to come up again. And then if you add 1 more block there right in the same row, it should meet up with this powered rail right here. And then we're going to place powered rails down. And then you're not going to place powered rails on the corners, obviously. Powered rails on these 2 blocks. Skip these 2 blocks. We'll worry about those ones later. Come over here, more powered rails. Regular rail on the corner, regular rail on this corner, and then this one right here, that block over there will not reach this one, so this one can just be a regular rail. And then we'll do powered for the rest of them, all the way up to the redstone block, and then these 2 blocks and these 2 blocks can be regular rails, and these 2 blocks can be regular rails as well. Now that we got most of the rails set up, it's time to set up our first redstone circuit. And I'm going to color code the circuits so that it's easier to tell what's going on. I actually recommend that you do the same. It'll help if you have an issue so you can tell what's going on. And I'm going to use magenta for this first circuit. I'm going to place a solid block right on top of this corner rail right there. And then I'm going to place another solid block right off to the side of it. And then I'm going to place a redstone repeater pointing out of the first block on top of the second block. And then I'm going to place a hopper pointing out of the redstone repeater. That's a dropper, I'm sorry. And then a hopper pointing into that dropper. And I'm going to place a temporary block underneath the dropper so that I can place 2 blocks right there. And then I'm going to place 2 redstone comparators pointing out of the dropper and the hopper. And then solid blocks on the backs of both of these redstone comparators. And then redstone torches on top of both of those blocks. And then a dropper on top of one of the comparators. You're actually going to place it on top of both, but it's harder to get them pointing in each other unless you place a few temporary blocks first. And then you can place 2 droppers facing into each other like so. Get rid of all that. And then we want a solid block on the side of this comparator here. And then another solid block. And then a comparator pointing out of the dropper right here. Redstone dust, torch on the side, and then we're going to need a temporary block under this hopper so we can place another block right there so that we can place a redstone dust that points into this hopper here. And then we want to come into these droppers, and on the bottom dropper you want to place 8 items that are stackable to 64. Any item will do. And then up top here on this dropper right here, we're going to place 1 item as well. And so this is a counter circuit. This should be the default state where this redstone torch is on. There is 1 item in this dropper and 8 items in this dropper. And we can place a button right here. And I actually recommend you do that. It'll help with some testing later. And if you press this button, it will go down to 7 and this redstone torch will go out. And if we press it again, it'll go down to 6 and then 5, etc. And then when you get it back down to 0, so 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, it will actually reset the circuit, and then this torch will go back on shortly after it drops all the items back into this dropper. So that's what we want to see happen. And another thing you can do just temporarily, just to see how it works if you want to, is if you've got it at any state, if you put a temporary block here on the side of this dropper and you press a button, then it will just reset the whole circuit just like that, and then it'll go back to 8. We'll set up a circuit later that will do exactly that, but you can test to make sure that that works as well. But I recommend you actually remove that redstone block, that temporary block that we placed there. So next we're going to come over here to these 2 rail spots that we skipped, and you can go ahead and place rails on them now, and then place a solid block on top of the lower of the 2 blocks, and place a rail on top of that one as well. And then you can immediately remove that, and you should end up with these 2 diagonal rails like so. Place a light gray block on top of the first solid block. Light gray is going to be the color we're going to use for the shulker unloader for the fuel. And then place a slab right next to it, like so. And then place a jungle wood log, like so, so it's kitty corner and up. And a detector rail on top of the light gray block. a cocoa bean against the jungle log and then bone meal it once so that it reaches its second stage. That's what we're going to use to position the minecart, is that cocoa bean right there. Place some solid blocks along the side so the cart doesn't go off the way. Might help if you place a solid block here as well. Place a cart, and that didn't work. Let's try again gently. There we go. That's what we want to see. You can remove all these temporary blocks here, and definitely remove the cocoa bean so that it doesn't grow into the next stage, and then it'll push the cart out of position. So that's the position you want that one to be in. And then go ahead and place iron bars. Go temporarily there and then there. And then remove that one right here. So we got an iron bar right there. That's what we're going to position the next cart with. And we're going to place an activator rail on top of the jungle log. You can go ahead and leave it a jungle log in case you ever need to reposition this. You don't want to have to remove this block and replace it with a jungle log. So go ahead and leave that as a jungle log. Place another cart right here. And then push it into the iron bar like that. And then that should be positioned so that if you place anything in this, it should just drop right down into there. And actually, if you had a cart here, which we'll set that up shortly, it should flow down into there as well. And we'll check that shortly. Next, we're going to set up the dark gray circuit. That circuit is designed to hold the minecart right here and then release it when the time is appropriate. And it's based on the counter circuit back here. So place a dark gray block right next to this magenta one where the torch is on. Place a temporary block and then a sticky piston on top of it, and then place an observer on top of the sticky piston that's facing towards the front of the machine, and then a repeater going from the redstone torch into the sticky piston, and then a solid block on the side of the sticky piston there, repeater coming out of that, set on 2 ticks, very important, this needs to be 2 ticks, and then a solid block coming out of the repeater with a redstone torch on the end like so. Place a temporary block underneath the redstone torch, and then 2 more blocks like so. Remove the temporary block, and then a sticky piston on the end of these 2 blocks pointing in towards the rail, and then a fence on the end of the sticky piston like so. And then if we place 2 repeaters on these blocks right here, it should extend that sticky piston. And so this is the circuit that will hold the cart. We can actually place the cart on the rail now. And if you want to, you can test and make sure that items stream all the way down. Just make sure that you remove the items from the cart. We don't want to place fuel into the system just yet, and you definitely don't want to place redstone in it, but you can see that it went all the way through. And if I push the button, then it should release the cart. So when it's in the default state where there's 8 items in here, if I push the button, it should release the cart. And if I do it again, nothing will happen. If I do it again, nothing will happen until it resets the circuit, and then goes again another time. So once we reset the circuit, we're down to 1. So this would be 0. Reset the circuit. Nothing actually happens. Even when this torch goes back on, nothing's happened yet. This is a falling edge circuit. So it waits until you do it another time, and then it'll release the cart again. And that's what you want to see happen. Let's do ourselves a favor and set up some of the red circuit now. That circuit controls the indicator lights, and we won't do anything with it for quite a while, but it gets a little spaghetti-ish, and some of this is going to be hard to place. We're going to bury all this really quickly, so we want to come down here to this redstone block right here and place a red block right next to it, and then come down a block. This is just temporary. Place another block, and then we'll create this shape like so, and then come out like so, and then turn, and then place a block right next to that redstone block right there. Place a torch on that one. Place repeaters here, here, and here, and we need to place another block up 1 block like so, and then place redstone on the rest of these blocks over here all the way, and then place a block right there to keep those redstone lines from crossing, and then place a redstone torch on this block right there. That's all we need to do for now. We'll come back to that. That's just, like I said, this gets buried pretty quickly, so it's easier to set it up now. Next, we're going to come over here to the start of the furnaces here, and we're going to extend this section by 3 blocks, and then I made a mistake here, and these 2 blocks are actually supposed to be down 1 block. Sorry about that, but you can go ahead, place the powered rails back on them, and then we're going to turn this and extend it another 4 blocks. So 1, second one's powered, 3, 4, total of 5 blocks in this row. Then we're going to come down 1 block. This one's just temporary, like so. Extend that, total of 3 blocks, and then turn for just 1 block. And then you want to come up a block like so. Carts are going to drop down onto there, and then they're going to go that way. So that block tells them to do that. And so we're going to place power rails here, all the way through to this corner. And then these are going to be regular rails, and this corner is going to be a regular rail. And you can power this one from a block here. That can be a regular block. Just put a switch on top of it. And then we're good there. And then we're going to place a solid block on top of this one and place a rail on top of it. So we got those corners again, fairly familiar pattern. And then remove that. Place a orange block here. The orange circuit is going to be our unloader for the smeltable items. We're going to need a slab here. Go ahead and place a slab. And then a detector rail. Again, very similar pattern here. And then we're going to place a log like so. And then again, cocoa bean, bone meal it. We're going to need some temporary blocks on the side here. And here as well, just to help us out. And then a cart. Go ahead and push that in. Remove the temporary blocks. Remove that. And then again, we need an iron. And place that like so. Remove that one. And then place an activator rail on top of the jungle log. And push a cart into the iron fence there. And then it's the exact same shulker box unloader for the smeltable items. So we're going to place a temporary block right next to this jungle log and then come up 1 block, remove the temporary block. And we're actually facing the opposite direction. So the comparator we place on top of that is actually going to face towards the right of the machine, but it's going to be your left. And I'm going to use the directions based on the direction you're facing. So the comparator is going to face your left. And then we're going to place 2 blocks, 1 on each side of this comparator here. And underneath this right block, we're going to place a dropper facing downwards. And then we'll place 3 more temporary blocks on the right side. And then remove 2 of them. And then place a dropper with a hopper facing into it like so. 1 item goes into the dropper. And then come back around this way. So now we're facing the back of the building. And we're going to place a hopper pointing into the lower dropper. Place a comparator facing towards your left, then an orange block, and then a torch on the back of that, torch on top of the block on top of the torch, and then a redstone repeater full 4 ticks, observer facing towards your right, dispenser facing straight down, like so, hopper pointing down into that, and then on this block right here, right above this iron fence, we're going to place a piston pointing in towards the dispenser there, blocks on top of and behind the piston, the temporary block, and then come up 1 block like so. Comparator pointing out of the dispenser into that solid block, piston, and then we want a skip a block, place an observer pointing into the hopper there, and then we're going to come down here to where this torch is. We're going to come down 2 blocks like so. Then we're going to come down another block and over. That one's just temporary. Total of 2 blocks here. We need redstone, redstone, redstone repeater on 2 ticks like so. And then again, we can test this thing. We've got our shulker box with just a few items in it. Should dispense it. And then go, and then go. And then the empty shulker boxes should end up here, and all the items should end up in here. We're going to end up having quite a few circuits that are interwoven between these 2 shulker box unloaders. So we're going to end up working on several circuits at once, and we're going to start with the lime circuit. The lime circuit is the one that starts the whole process running, and it says, hey, do I have enough fuel? Do I have anything to smelt? And if both of those conditions are met, so it's going to be an AND circuit, then it's going to trigger off the whole process. So we want to come down here to this detector rail right here, place a lime block next to it, place a comparator on top of that pointing outwards, and then pointing out of the comparator, you want to place a lime terracotta block. and we're going to place a slime block right next to there fairly soon, so you don't want that block to get moved by that. And then we want to place a redstone torch on the side of it. And then we're going to do a little bit more of the red circuit here. We're going to come down 2 blocks. The first one is temporary. Place a little dot of redstone dust on top of that block, and then place a torch on the side of that. So that's going to trigger off that circuit right there, and that's the first indicator light that says, hey, we have enough fuel. We actually don't right now, so that circuit is off. And then we want to come and place a block on the side of that red block, and that's just temporary. Place another block on top of it, and then place a repeater pointing out from that torch, like so. And then place a line block on the end of that redstone torch, place a torch on top of that, place a block to the side here, torch pointing, redstone repeater pointing out of the torch and into another solid block with a torch on top of that. And then we want to set up a little bit of the green circuit, and what the green circuit does is it resets this magenta circuit, this counter circuit, so that whenever you start a new job, it resets this back to 8, so it starts sending fuel immediately. We want to start by placing a sticky piston pointing in this direction on top of this redstone torch right there, and it should be extended. If your circuit isn't reset back to 8, go ahead and push this button until it is. And you want this to be an extended piston with a sticky block on the end of it, and put a green block on top of it. And what this does is it prevents it from actually resetting the circuit if it's already reset, which it is already reset. So that way the circuit won't run through this because the piston is extended, but when it's retracted, the signal will go through this block. We're actually going to have a solid block here, a repeater here, and then it's going to go through that block, and then we'll place a green block on top of this one, dust on top of it, and then a block on top of this right here, that second dropper over here, with a repeater pointing into it. And that's the green circuit for now. Future me here, I noticed later that this block right here is actually supposed to be a terracotta block because it's right next to the slime, and if we left it like this, then this redstone dust would just break right off of it. So let's replace that with a green terracotta and put the redstone dust back, and then that should be correct. Very important, this first repeater right here needs to be on 2 ticks, otherwise the circuit won't work. And then we want to set up the brown circuit, and the brown circuit is the timer circuit that releases the hopper minecart that's going to go right here. So on top of this green block right here, we're going to want to place a brown block, and then come back 1, and then this is a temporary block, and then up 1, like so. And then you want to do 3 more blocks, should be a total of 5 right here. Place a sticky piston with a repeater pointing towards the back of the machine, like so. And then place a block up 1 right there, and then place a temporary block right here, place a block on top of it and a block to the side, and then you can remove it, and you place another block to the side of that, and then a temporary block with a block up above it, and then we can place a trapdoor right here, and then we'll place a redstone torch, and that should close the trapdoor, so that'll hold the minecart. And then we want to place a whole bunch of repeaters like so all the way down. All of these 5 are on the maximum number of ticks. This one's on the regular 1 tick. This one is on 2 ticks. And then this one is on 4 ticks, the maximum number. And then we want to come back over to the start of this brown circuit and place another brown block right next to it. Place a temporary block. Place a block underneath and besides it, and then remove the temporary block. We want a repeater on 2 ticks, and then a redstone torch on the side of this last one, and then come down 2 blocks. First block's temporary, and then remove that first block, place redstone dust on top of that one, place a sticky piston pointing straight down right next to it, and then another sticky piston pointing towards the side, pointing over towards this rail, like so. And then place a top slab right there, and that's what's going to release the carts that are going to start in the whole system. And then every time it releases a cart, we want it to tick down our counter right here. So time to remove this button that we placed and place instead an observer pointing straight down. So every time it releases a cart, it'll tick this, and then every 8 carts that it'll send a fuel cart as a result. And then we want to come back around and set up some more of the red circuit, and we want to look at this dispenser right here and determine if there are items inside of it. So we'll place a temporary block next to this piston and then one block over and remove the temporary block and have a comparator pointing out of the dispenser there. We'll place a block pointing out of that comparator there and then place another block on top of this repeater. So we got this little shape right there. Place redstone right there in between those two blocks. And then come over to this side and place a redstone torch on the side of this block. And then this redstone torch, you want to place a block on the side of it. So it shows up like that. And then place redstone on the side of that. And then come back around. I'm sorry, this is a very spaghetti kind of situation here. And then place a redstone torch on the side of that. And then I actually had to make a change because I noticed that this red circuit was interfering with one of the other circuits. So we're going to place a block on top of this one and put redstone dust on that and actually remove this one, remove this block down there. And instead we're going to stair step down one right there, redstone there, place a torch here, and then a couple red blocks right there and right there. And the signal will get inverted eventually. So right now this dispenser is empty and it's got a strong signal down there, which is actually what we want. So next we're going to finish up the lime circuit. We're going to come up here and place a solid block on top of this redstone torch, and then come over here and place another solid block right next to this detector rail here. Put a comparator on that block pointing out from the detector rail, and then place a solid block on the end of that comparator, and then a redstone torch on the side there, and redstone dust on this block right here. And so this is our AND circuit right here. Normally you would invert that signal, but what we're looking at is if this redstone torch is on, that means there's nothing to smelt, and if this redstone torch is on, then there is no fuel. So if either of them is on, this redstone torch will light up, and what we're actually going to do is use that to stop the machine from starting in the first place. And then we're going to come up a block right here. We'll make a little shape like a C, like so, and then a little extension right there. Place redstone dust on these blocks right here, this block over here, place a redstone torch, and then a solid block right there. This solid block is where we're going to stop the machine from starting. And then we're also going to place a piston, a sticky piston, right next to this block pointing straight down. And then underneath that, we're going to place an observer pointing straight down as well. So when the machine starts up again, this piston is going to retract. And when it finishes its job, it's going to extend again. And it's going to fire off this dark green circuit, which is going to reset our counter down here. Next, we're going to set up the clock that runs this brown timing circuit. We're going to start by placing a sticky piston on the side of this lime block right here that has a repeater on top of it. And then place two temporary blocks on top of that. Remove the bottom one. Come down here. Place an observer facing straight down into the piston. Remove the temporary block first, and then place an observer on the face of that piston right there so that that's in the right place. And then you can place two brown blocks on the side of this top observer. And then in the gap between them, place a sticky piston facing outward, and then place an observer facing up, like so. And then we're going to set up a modified etho clock. So we're going to place a hopper on top of this repeater here, and then place a hopper over the observer facing right in to the repeater, and then remove the first hopper, have another hopper pointing into that second hopper. So we got two hoppers pointing into each other, and then place a solid block on the side of this repeater here, comparator on this solid block, comparator on that solid block, and then solid blocks on the sides of the comparators, like so. And then redstone on top of both of the solid blocks, sticky piston on right next to that redstone, and then a regular piston over here. And then redstone block on top of this hopper right here. Should bring your observer back in so we don't have to worry about that. And then place 11 items. 11 items inside of this hopper. Should be none that go into this hopper. Our observer is in the right state still. That's great. And come over here and set up a redstone torch on the side of this brown block here. Place a dropper on the side of that facing inward like so. And then a hopper pointing into that. We're going to place one block into the hopper, and then this green block that we've powered from our lime green circuit is actually going to hold that item into the hopper and place a comparator pointing out like that, and it should extend that piston. And then we're going to place a solid block on top of this piston arm, and then we're going to place a dropper on top of that, place a hopper pointing into that dropper, and then come out of the back side, place a slab, place a comparator pointing out of the hopper into a solid block, like so. Redstone on top of it, sticky piston pointing out of the redstone, like so, and then an observer pointing towards the front of the machine, like so. Let's put an item inside. Actually, first, let's place a block here and place a button right here so that this right here doesn't send a signal to that dropper, and then place redstone dust into the dropper. It'll trigger it off for a second, but it should return back to the normal state fairly shortly. Alright, so the timing circuit's all set up, so now we're going to set up an item elevator that's going to bring the fuel up into this hopper right here. We're going to do that in blue, and we'll start at this dark gray block with a torch on the side of it. We're going to place 3 temporary blocks going out from it, and then place a double chest like so. And then from the middle block, come down 1 block, and place a dropper facing straight up on the side of that block, and then 4 more droppers facing straight up. Should be a total of 5. And then 1 dropper pointing towards the right of the machine on top of that. And then you can remove these 3 temporary blocks. We can keep this bottom one right here. Then we want another block going down. You can actually place it on top of the rails. And then you can come up a block like so. And then a comparator facing out of this dropper here into a redstone torch on this side. Solid block on top of that. 2 temporary blocks. Remove the bottom one. Place an observer facing straight down. Remove the top temporary block and place a powered rail on top of it. And then place a solid block on top of the comparator here. And place a redstone repeater coming out of this block right here into this one, like so, on 2 ticks. Redstone torch on the other side there. Redstone torch on top of that block. And then solid block on top of that. Redstone torches on both sides. Should power the rail like that. Place a block on top of this side. Then a torch. Another solid block. And then a torch. And then if we set up some hoppers here, place a hopper going into this. Turn. Come under the chest. And any items we put, just put a couple items just to make sure. Should come out and get spat out of the machine like so. And then we can set up a hopper chain like there and run that like that. So any items that you put in there, shulker boxes, will go into the fuel supply. So let's put a sign on that that says what it is. And then let's actually skip a block over from this double chest, place another small chest right here, remove that temporary block, place hoppers going into this all the way back like so, and then you can run it under this dropper right here, and that'll collect your empty shulker boxes. So, and there we go. Now we can set up the rest of the red circuits, so we can come over to this item elevator here, place a temporary block next to the second dropper down, and then place a block next to that so that we can place a comparator coming out of this hopper right here. And then we want to place 2 blocks like so with repeaters on both of them. A red block at the end of this repeater, and then come down a block right next to there, and then come back up a block. Place a repeater in the gap right there, and then a redstone lamp. Might as well place 2 more redstone lamps right here. So this is the circuit. You will almost never see this 3rd lamp. This is telling you that you have so much fuel that it's about to back up your item elevator, and that can be hard to unclog. So if you ever see that light go on, that means don't put more fuel in it, but you'll almost never see that. And then come over to here to the lime circuit, place a red block right next to that with a repeater coming out of it, and then a red block there going into a redstone torch. Place a block on top of it and in front of it, like so. And then place a block, temporary block there, block on top of that. Redstone repeater right there. and then another lamp right here, and that's your indicator light to tell you if the machine is on. You'll notice it inverted the signal, so when this redstone goes off, that means the machine's running, and this light will go on. Next, we're going to come down to these two red circuits right here, and we're going to look at this one right now. So we're going to place a temporary block, and then another block out. We can remove the temporary block, place redstone on top of this block. It'll get powered through this block by the repeater there. Place glass, and then glass on top of the redstone, and then go up with another block, and glass again. So we're stair-stepping up the glass like so. And then place a temporary block right next to the glass. Place a sticky piston on top of it. You can remove the temporary block. Place a cauldron. Fill it with water. I like using water bottles in survival because there's no chance you're going to spill water all over your redstone if you do that. Place a solid block underneath this bottom redstone lamp, and then come over and back one. This is just a temporary block, and then place a comparator right there so that when this is powered, it will extend this piston, and the cauldron will trigger the comparator there, and we'll turn on this bottom light. And the bottom light means that there is enough fuel for the system to operate. This last one requires a bit more spaghetti. You got to work around all this redstone so it doesn't interfere with anything. So this torch right here, place a red block on top of it, torch on top of that, then red block on top of it. Come over to this side, place two red blocks on the side of that torch, place redstone repeaters on these blocks here, and then a solid block coming out of that, so, and then come down a block and then back up a block, redstone repeater, and then we're going to place another block on the side right here. So we'll place redstone dust and then another solid block right there, and then what we're going to do is we're going to place a button right here, and that forces this redstone dust to go into this block so that it will actually power that torch like so. And then we're going to place a piston on top of it, a sticky piston, place a cauldron on the face of that sticky piston, place water in it, and then come over to this side, block on the back of the second lamp right here, and then come down and back one. Again, this is just a temporary block right there, and then a comparator there. So when this is powered, the cauldron will extend, and that will power the second light. And the second light means that there is an extra shulker box in reserve of fuel. So there's a shulker box inside of this dispenser. So that means you've got a decent amount to keep it running for a second. Now we're going to set up the item elevator that brings up the shulker boxes full of smeltable items into this orange circuit over here. So we're going to come over here, one block over from this red one, right next to this rail, place a dropper facing straight up, and then place 9 more going up for a total of 10. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And we're going to make this circuit purple. Place a solid block right next to the bottom dropper. Place a block down right on top of the rail here. Block up. This is basically the exact same circuit as the item elevator we did over here. It's just a little bit taller. So we'll place a comparator pointing out of this dropper here. Redstone torch on this side. Block on top of that. 2 temporary blocks. Remove this bottom one. Observer pointing straight down. Remove the second temporary block. Place a rail on top of that. Solid block here. Redstone repeater on 2 ticks pointing into it. Torch on the top and on the outside. Solid block on top of that. Torches on both sides. Block on top of that. Torch on the front. Block on top of that. Torches on both sides. Block on top of that. Torch on the front. Block on top of that. Torches on both sides. Block up. Torch. Block up, and we only need 1 torch on this side right here. If we place any items in here, they should go all the way up, like so. And then we'll set up some hoppers here. Come over to this right here, place a hopper pointing straight down into this one, and then run the hoppers all the way over until you reach the top of that. And then come over here and place 4 hoppers like so, and place a chest in front of that, and place a sign on it. There we go. So that's actually all there is for the input of the furnace array. We've got all the input handled. So now we need to deal with the output. And we want to come over here to the end of the rail where we've got this detector rail right here. And then we're going to come down from that block an additional 10 temporary blocks. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then come in a block towards the middle of the machine. And then come back and place 3 yellow blocks like so. Can get rid of these temporary blocks. Place a yellow block in the middle, and then 3 blocks on each side here. So this is the front of the machine right here. Place a redstone dot on the front, place a comparator on the back pointing into that, and then on each side place 3 powered rails. On the middle, place observers facing straight up, and then behind those on the back, place observers facing straight down. And then place droppers facing towards the back on top of these observers. Oops. Right here, like so. And then droppers on these ones right here, facing inwards. That's going to create a clock right here. And then place a yellow block right here on the back of this observer. And then come down a block, like so. Place redstone on top of it. Solid block on top of that. Comparator coming out of this front dropper here, and then a sticky piston pointing towards the back. Redstone block on that, and that'll stop that side from clocking. Then we need to do the same thing to this other side. Yellow block, come down a block, redstone, yellow block, comparator, sticky piston pointing towards the back, and redstone. And if we place any items in these front 2 droppers right here, it will spit them out very, very quickly. See, I'm already getting them back into my inventory. Almost can't see it happening. There we go. So that's what you want to have happen. Next, we're going to place a solid block on the back of this comparator right here. And then we're going to place a front-facing observer that points towards the comparator on top of that block. And then come back over here where we've got this redstone dot. Place 4 temporary blocks, and then 2 more going up, and then remove all but the last one. This one's still a temporary block, but it's going to be a central location where our hoppers are going to meet up. So let's do a hopper chain going all the way over to the observer back here that we just placed. And on the last hopper, place a slab. And then up here between these 2 droppers, place a dispenser. So it looks like that. And then come out behind this observer, place a cauldron, put some water in it, and then place a temporary block behind it, and then another block on top of it. Remove the temporary block, and then place a sticky piston facing straight down, and then on top of that, place a sticky piston facing straight up. And we'll put a redstone dust on top of the yellow block here. And then come over here, we put on the side of this dropper, place a solid block. On the side of this lower piston, solid block. We want solid blocks on all 3 sides of this redstone dust. Place temporary blocks first, like so. And then again, lower piston next to the dropper. We'll place comparators in the gaps that we've created here. And then on the end over here, we're going to place a redstone torch, like so. Place a block on top of that redstone torch. And then 2 redstone torches on the side. And then another block on top of each of those. And then 2 blocks in a row, just like that. On both sides, place redstone repeaters on top of both of those blocks, all 4 of those blocks, and those are going to be on 4 ticks. Place sticky pistons coming out of the front of both of those repeaters there. We're going to place observers facing straight down on both of these sticky piston faces. And an observer facing straight forward on top of this one. Place 2 slabs, top slabs, in front of this observer that we just placed. The first one here is going to have a 4-tick repeater on it. Second one, we're going to place 2 temporary blocks. Remove the bottom temporary block so we can place a sticky piston facing straight down. Then remove that block. Place 2 more temporary blocks on the sides of this piston so we can place observers facing straight up. Remove those temporary blocks. and then place an observer coming out of the piston, and then another observer underneath that facing down into the dispenser. And I forgot a block right here. This one needs to be a solid block as well. And then this is our 4-time shulker box loader, and it should be working, and we can test it out by placing a shulker box that's mostly full of items, and we place it down onto this slab right here, so we'll still be able to open it. And then we need a shulker box that's empty, and we will place it into this dispenser right here, like so. And if you put items into one of these two front hoppers, it should fill up the shulker box the rest of the way. And then when it's full, it'll break the shulker box, dispense out another one, and put the rest of the items, which should be exactly 32 items, into the shulker box. Like so. So that's working, and we can crack the shulker box and it'll just go down into that row of hoppers right there. And then we're just going to build another one of these right over here. So we'll come down 2 temporary blocks from this temporary block that we placed right here, and then come over 3 blocks like so. Remove these, and then place the block in the middle, 2 blocks on each side, or 3 blocks on each side like so. Redstone Dust on the front, comparator on this side, rails on both sides, observer facing straight up. In the middle, observer facing straight down towards the back. And then droppers facing towards the front. This is technically the front. This would be the back of this shulker box loader, the front of the device. I'll call it the front. And then facing inward, 2 droppers like so. Oh, these are dispensers. Let's fix that. All right, droppers facing towards the back. Droppers facing inward, like so. And that should create our clock. Yellow block against the observer. Go down a block, like so. Redstone on top of it. Solid block on top of that. Comparator coming out of the dropper. Sticky piston facing towards the back. And then redstone block stops the clock. Block on top of this, on the back of this observer. Come down a block. So, place redstone dust, solid block, comparator, sticky piston facing the back, redstone block, stops the clock, and if we place items into this, they should spit out very quickly. Alright, so that's all working, and then solid block on the back of this comparator here. And then an observer facing inwards. And we still have this temporary block right here. Place some hoppers in a chain going up to this observer here. Place a slab on top of this back hopper. Place a dispenser, like so. And then a cauldron on the back of this observer here, filled with water. Temporary block, block up, remove the temporary block. Piston facing straight down, piston facing straight up. Redstone dust, like so. Block on the side of the dropper, lower piston, each side of the redstone here. And then let's actually remember to place this block right there. And then place comparators here and here. And then redstone torch on the end. Block on top of that. Redstone torches on each side. Blocks on top of those. 2 blocks in a row. Both sides. Repeaters on 4 ticks. On top of all 4 of those blocks. Sticky pistons coming out of the fronts of those, with observers facing straight down. Observer facing forward, and then 2 top slabs. This one's got a redstone repeater on 4 ticks, and then two temporary blocks there, remove the bottom one, sticky piston facing straight down, 2 temporary blocks here and here, observers facing straight up, and then observer coming out and observer coming down, and then that one should be working as well. So let's go ahead and give that a test. Same way. Oh, let's remove items and empty a shulker box. Put some items in there. Should fill up, crush it, and then dispense out the next one. And that's what we want to see. There we go. And then we're going to place 2 temporary blocks on the side of this redstone block right here. This is the front shulker box loader, and the blocks are going over towards the input section over here. Let's place a dropper facing straight up on the side of that. And then we are going to place a hopper on the side of that, going towards the back of the furnaces. And then let's do 2 more hoppers like so. And then we'll turn and go over towards this yellow block. And we're actually going to replace that yellow block with a hopper like so. And then place hoppers going into both of the dispensers right there. And we're going to set up the pink circuit. The pink circuit is the one that tells you if you have enough empty shulker boxes for the unloaders or the loaders here. So let's place comparators on both of these. And then solid blocks coming out of the backs of those comparators like so. And then temporary block here, block up. Place repeaters on top of these 2 blocks. Place solid blocks on the end of those repeaters, torches on the ends of those blocks. Place a temporary block right there, and then block up right here, and then place redstone dust on here. And so if either of these hoppers are empty, then this circuit will light up, which is what we want. So that'll be fed up into an indicator light. We'll set that up shortly. Now we're going to set up a whole bunch of hoppers, and we're actually going to start with 2 droppers facing whichever direction. Place them on top of these 2 hoppers that we placed that go into these dispensers. Place hoppers on top of those, droppers on top of those. I like facing straight up. And then hopper on top of those. And those will help us differentiate. These are the ones where shulker boxes will go in, and the rest of these hoppers are all going to feed items into these shulker box loaders. So on the sides of each of these right here, and the tops like so. So on the side of this dropper, top of this dropper, and then hoppers on top of those till we're coming up to this side. Side here, top as well, like so. And then come up and there, and on the side, like so. And then so this is the outside of our machine right here. So this side, what we want to do is this one, all it's going to do is going to come in one, just like that, like there. So that's actually done. And for these ones right here, we're actually going to come out and then over 3 and then in 1, like so. And do the same thing over on this side, out, over 3, and then in. So that should look like that. And then on this side, this is the inside going towards the input section. We're going to have this one. It's just going to go in and over like so. Same thing over here, in and over. And then on this outside one, we're going to come out 1 and then over 3 and then back in 2 like so. And then same thing over here, out 1, over 3, and then in 2. So you should have this shape right here. These 4 or these 8 right here, this is where we're going to load everything. So these are the primary ones that you want to be concerned with. So these 2 are going out, these 2 are going out, and this one's going out, and these ones are going to their sides. Hopefully that's not confusing. Next, we're going to align 2 hopper minecarts over these hoppers so that they will evenly distribute items in 8 different directions. So this is the front of the machine right here, and this is the outside. So we'll come over onto this side, and we're going to place, I got a temporary block that we never removed. Let's get rid of that so we can see a little better. And we'll place a cobblestone wall on top of this hopper and a cobblestone wall on top of this hopper. And we'll place rails in between those 2 hoppers like so. and then place hopper minecarts on those rails. And then if you walk in between them, they will separate. And you can remove the rails now. And then let's place cobblestone walls on the other sides, like so. And then place some temporary blocks going out so that you can place a piston facing in. Be careful not to bump these hopper minecarts when you're doing this, like so. And then place glass right there. And then if you power these two pistons, it will push them in like so. And then you can remove the cobblestone walls. And you'll note that each of these hopper minecarts is over 4 hoppers. Even this corner right here, this will count. So that should distribute the items evenly. And you can remove all this right here. And you can remove the glass if you want. And you can place slabs, top slabs there if you want. I actually like having the glass. So what we're going to do next is we're going to come here. We're going to place glass over the rest of this. So we're going to need some temporary blocks. Actually, we can probably use this one. And then here, I'm not sure I can, yeah, let's place a temporary block there. Piston facing straight down, like so. Again, you can use top slabs if you wanted to and do the same basic thing. Either one works. If you power these, and then we need to power these back ones here. There we go. Alright, so we're finally ready to finish our rail circuit. So let's come over here and place a solid block on top of this glass corner here, right underneath this detector rail here. Place a rail, doesn't matter which kind, on top of that. And then a detector rail, and then a powered rail. And we can remove this rail and place a solid block there instead. And we're going to place a block up, and then go another block up, and power that one. And then turn and place a block next to that. And then we're going to block up like so. We're actually going to just stair step all the way up. This is what I like to do in survival, is stair step up like this so that I can remove all of these blocks. And they'll be at my feet and they won't drop down. So we'll do it that way. All the way up until we get in between these two lamps right here. Like so. And then we're going to come out one more block. And then turn. And then we're going to place a powered block here. So we got this little shape there. And then we're going to stair step up 2 more blocks. Like so. There we go. And then we're going to place a glass tube around this slab right here, everywhere that we can. So start with the sticky piston, or the piston head, and go all the way up right there. And then we can place it against this brown block and this block, and then we can't do anything else on this side. And then we can place glass on this side, like so. And we want to bring it up 1 block further so that the cart hits this glass block and goes down. And then there's not really anything we can do to this side. These are all blocked with other things. Place a glass block there. And then we'll place powered rails everywhere we can. No power there. Powered rails, powered rails, powered rails. And then this one right here is going to be a detector rail. And then that's a turn, and that's powered, and that's powered as well. There we go. Next, we'll set up the black circuit. The black circuit will hold a cart down here until it is empty, and then it will release it. And we've got a temporary block here that I never removed, so let's go ahead and remove that. And instead, 1 block down, place a black block, and then place a comparator on that. And then we'll come a block down from that, like so. Place redstone on top of that, and then a block on top of that, and then another block besides it. And then we'll come over and up a block, like so. And run redstone into that block. Place a redstone torch on the side of it. Place a comparator down here as well. And then place a cobblestone wall up against the slab. And then 1 block up from that. And then place a fence gate right on top of this powered rail right there. And that should stay open because of the redstone torch. But if you had any minecarts with items in it, that would close that fence until they didn't have items in them anymore. All right, we're in the home stretch now, so let's come over here to where we set up this dropper, and we'll set up the rest of the item elevator that'll bring the finished shulker boxes all the way up. So we're going to place 10 droppers on top of this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. and then one facing forward like so. So we should line up right with this chest there. And then we'll come on back down, place a solid block next to there. We're doing this circuit in white because we've run out of colors. And then we'll come down and over one, and then up and over one, like so. And then place a comparator. This is basically the same item elevator as we've done in the other two instances. There's just one small difference at the top. So place solid block, nope, two temporary blocks, observer pointing straight down, not up. And then rail on top of that, like so. And then we will place a repeater on 2 ticks, like so. And then redstone torch, block on top of that. Torches on both sides. Block on top of that. Torch, block, 2 torches, block, torch, block, 2 torches, block, torch, and keep going, block, 2 torches. Actually, on this one, instead of the torch on the back, we're going to do it on the side here. Place a block there. Torch back here. Block over here. Half slab right there. And a torch right there. Apparently we had an item in there. And we will place a chest right there. And if we put any items in here, they should come up into that chest. Looks like everything's working there. And we'll place a sign on it. And this will actually be for shulker boxes, but it's fine to test it with regular items. All right, so all of the items made it up into this chest here. That's what we want to see. So we'll remove those and then come on down and come back to this pink circuit. Let's finish that up, and we'll go around these hoppers like so. And then we're going to block up right there. And then redstone dust into a repeater, into this block here. Torch on top of it. Block on top of that. Torch. Block. Torch. Block. And then as soon as we get above these rails right here, we're going to place glass right next to the rails here, like so. We don't want to interfere with these droppers here. Also, we're going to have some hoppers in the area that we don't want to interfere with. So place glass up 1 block. This one's just temporary. And then turn and come this way. And then place a solid block up against these rails right here, like so. And we place a redstone repeater coming out of this pink block into dust, into a redstone repeater going into that block. Piston on top of it, cauldron, fill it with water. Right next to this piston, place a block with a comparator coming right out of the cauldron there. Solid block at the end of the comparator here. Torch on top of it. Solid block here. Steel lamp from over here. There we go. And place a lamp right there. So right now the lamp is off. That's telling us we don't have enough empty shulker boxes. If we did have enough, that would fire off this piston, move the cauldron up, and then this signal would be inverted and the light would go on. Next, we're going to set up the cyan circuit, and what that circuit does is it breaks the shulker boxes whenever you are done with a furnace run, so you don't end up with half full shulker boxes in there. Instead, it'll send it up to the finished one and put a clean shulker box in there for the next run. So to do that circuit, we want to come next to this detector rail right here, place a block next to it, then another block next to that. That one's temporary, place a block below it, block above it, remove the temporary block. Place blocks on top of the observer and the piston here, then place a glass block, and then come around a corner here and place 2 more blocks. Then on the other side, I'm going to place 3 blocks and then turn for 1 block, place a temporary block, block on top of it, block beside it, remove the temporary block, 2 more blocks, temporary block, block on top of it, block below it, remove the temporary block, and we'll come back up here, place a redstone repeater, and then a redstone below it. Redstone down here, another repeater. This one's on 4 ticks. Redstone Dust, observers, comparators, redstone, bunch more comparators all the way around. Redstone right there, should look like that. Redstone Dust down below here, Redstone Torch here, and then on the side of this block right here, have a piston facing towards the back of the machine, and then an observer pointing up on the end of that piston. Place a block on top of that observer, and then another block over here. Place redstone dust on top of that block, and then place a block on top of that to make sure that these redstone dust don't cross. And then a redstone repeater on 2 ticks. Place redstone all the way down, place it on this hopper, and then all the hoppers all the way across, and then on this hopper as well. Place solid blocks there and there on top of those observers there, and those will power the piston that's right here, but only through quasi connectivity. So what we need to do is place another piston on top of that, and we'll have that pointing inward like so, and that'll actually update the piston and cause it to fire normally. And same thing over here, piston pointing right there. And then that should all be set there, and the way that you can test that is you can place a minecart on top of the rail. So if we stand on this block and place a minecart right here and then walk into it, it should go up there, and you can actually see the signal here, and you can see it's dying very, very slowly. And then when it does eventually go down, you should see this piston fire, and it'll break the shulker box, and then it would normally, there's no empty shulker boxes in there, but normally it would push out a new one. So that's all working great. All right, we're finally on to the last circuit, and that's going to be a light blue circuit. And what that does is it makes sure that any empty shulker boxes we put in the system, they're going to get divided evenly between these 2 shulker box loaders. So what we want to do is we want to come over to the inside here, and we've got this hopper right here and this hopper right here. These both feed the shulker boxes for these loaders. We're going to start with this one over here. We're going to extend this out by 4, and then we're going to turn and we're going to extend it out by 10. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We should be 3 blocks past this item elevator right here. And then we're going to come over to this other one. And we're going to extend that one out until we reach this one, and then just extend this one out for the same distance as well. And then place 2 solid blocks right at the end of those. Place a temporary block on this side. Place a dropper on the side of it, like so. Place a temporary block on top of this cyan block right there. Place a dropper facing into this one, and then you can place an item into the one of the 2 droppers. Does not matter which one. And then on the other side of this temporary block, we'll place another solid block, and then a block there, and then you can remove the temporary block. And then on this middle comparator here, we'll place a block, and then make a little L shape like so. And then right here, we're going to place a comparator pointing into the gap here. Put a solid block on the end of that comparator. Redstone dust and a repeater on that side, and then we place this block on the side of this redstone dust like so, and then repeater coming out of that block, and then redstone dust going back into the comparator. And then we're going to come over here and we're going to place an observer that's going to look at this repeater there and send a signal out this way, and then a sticky piston right there, and then we'll place 2 hoppers pointing straight down into each of those 2 comparators like so, and then place an observer facing in towards these droppers like there. So that's the light blue circuit, and then we need to do some more hoppers. We'll start by placing a double chest on top of this right here, and then feed a hopper into that, and then another hopper. So we're running a hopper right by this comparator here, and then come back in 2 more hoppers, and then come around 2 hoppers like so, and then place a dropper on top of that. Doesn't matter which way it's facing. Hopper on top of that, and then you can place a chest on top of that and put a sign on that. That's your chest for your empty ones. All right, and then we're not done here. We're actually going to set up another hopper chain that feeds in the empty shulker boxes that come out of this orange circuit here, and that's just going to recycle them back down here so that you don't have to keep feeding shulker boxes in. It's just going to use the empty ones that come from that part of the system. So out of the dropper here, place 2 more hoppers, and then we're going to turn and then turn again so that we're not going underneath these hoppers right here. And then come right past that and then turn right after it and come all the way across. This is going to be kind of hard to do in survival. I apologize for that. You want to run over the rails and then 1 block further and then come over this way and then come on out before placing this hopper. Have to scaffold up somehow or something like that, and then place a hopper on top of it, dropper on top of that, hopper, dropper, hopper, dropper, and then place a hopper underneath this dropper that'll point into that dropper. So then any empty shulker boxes that come through this system are just going to get recycled down into that go through this blue circuit, which will divide them evenly across the 2 yellow ones. And we can check that out by placing some empty shulker boxes into this chest right here. Let's place 10, and then we should get 5 in each one of our dispensers down here. So we can make sure that's working. We're only getting 1 on this side, and looks like all of them are coming over here. It's a good chance to get rid of any items that fell into those dispensers on accident. And then what we can do here, this happens from time to time. I think a lot of the time you just need to replace these hoppers right here, and then we give it another try. See if we're getting, you can also watch these hoppers right here. You should get an even flow of items into both of them. Looks like it's working now. I don't know why. Sometimes you just need to replace those hoppers. I've run into that a few times. You might actually need to do that most times. And it looks like we're getting an even distribution here and there. And same thing over here. Looks like we're pretty good. We got a few more over there from the first run. And then now that we've got enough shulker boxes in there, this light should go on as well. It will take 20 shulker boxes for that light to go on. At this point, the machine's basically done. You just want to make sure that no items fell where they weren't supposed to. So again, we just checked this, but these dispensers down here, make sure there's not any non-shulker box items in these dispensers for the shulker box loaders. And then come up here, and we've got this shulker box loader over here. Make sure there's not anything in this dispenser that's not a shulker box full of fuel. And you probably shouldn't load it with fuel just yet. Anyways, these hopper mine carts here, make sure there's not any items in them. This one can be, there you go, like a random button, for example. So take that one out, make sure that would cause problems. And then check out these hopper mine carts, make sure there's nothing in there. Check out this dispenser, make sure there's nothing in there. And then we'll check out the furnaces later because there probably are items that fell into some of those furnaces. But other than that, we're good. And it's probably a good idea to place composters on top of all of the hoppers that are open if you're in 1.14 or above. Otherwise, place droppers if you're in earlier versions. These prevent lag. And if you want to, there are probably a few of them where you may not want to do that for decorative purposes. Like for example, you might place a floor at this level right here, which by the way now is a good time to place a floor. So you might not want to put composters on top of those, but you can still put composters on top of these two right here, and then composters on top of these guys back here, because this, not this one, but this one might be part of your wall or something like that. And so all the way across, and then composters on all this, composters on all these, composters down here, etc., etc. There's one hopper that you don't want to place anything on top of. It's this one right here where this redstone block moves back and forth. Obviously, you wouldn't want to get in the way of that. You can place one on the hopper behind it. And then another thing that's a good idea to do is to place lights all around this place, not just to keep mobs out, but also to keep the redstone updates from causing light updates that might cause lag, especially on these item elevators. Those can cause redstone updates very quickly when they're running, so it's a good idea to place lights around these item elevators, but around the whole thing in general, just to keep lag to a minimum. Another thing you're going to want to do is reset the magenta circuit. There's a good chance that got triggered a few times and it's not sitting at 8 right now. You can actually do that by just coming over to this redstone right here, removing it, and then replacing it again, and that will reset your magenta circuit down here. So now it should be back at 8 no matter what it was at before, so it's a good idea to do that. And then we're now ready to place some mine carts in the system. So we can come up the stairs over here, and then we'll place mine carts. If we stand on this top block, we can actually just place them and they'll fall down automatically. So that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then we do want to place an 8th one, but it will be crooked if we place it like that. So let's place it here and then walk up, and then now it's straight. So that's what we want to see. Let's go ahead and place some fuel into the system. Got a shulker box full of fuel. Load that up. We should be able to see it coming in. There we go. And we'll see it coming down into here. And then as soon as that's full, we'll start getting some into this one, and then this comparator will turn on, and then the system will be ready to go. Almost there. There we go. Yep, there we go. So this light should turn on now. And then we're ready to actually smelt some items. So we'll go ahead, and we're not going to go too crazy. This is 8 stacks. So it'll be 4 runs, and we should be able to come over here and watch that come through. There we go. And then it should turn on. We got the blue circuit, or the green circuit here. Carts are coming in. Should be exactly 2 stacks of items that come through here. Also, you saw the fuel cart go through right there. And then this cart is going down, and we should get another one. Exactly 2 stacks. And at this point, it's a good idea to go through all your furnaces and make sure that there aren't any that aren't burning. There's a good chance that while you were building it, it's much more likely in survival for things to fall into the hoppers up above, and then you won't have anything smelting. So any furnaces that aren't burning, go through, remove any items out of the furnaces, check the hoppers above them. I'm in creative, so that didn't really happen, but it's very likely to happen in survival. And if that does happen, then once this is all done, you're probably going to want to place a cart like right here and let it run through and grab all the items out of the hoppers underneath it, just to make sure to clear everything out of the hoppers underneath once you've actually got everything through. Because if you let this run and then there's, it's stalled for a second and then you restart it, you'll have items that get clogged up in the hoppers down there, and you don't want that. And it looks like everything's going on good down here. We look good. And then once this run finishes, I think that's actually one of the last few carts here. We should see the last cart come through, and it's empty, and it goes through, and you'll see this timer start to count down. And then once it's done, it will kick off these shulker box loaders here and send the items up like normal. And that's what we want to see. Looks like everything's working great, and this light is off now. So here's our output from that run. We got 2 shulker boxes because there's 2 loaders, so the items will get split between them. I did not get an even split. In my original creative world, I always got an even split, but in my survival world, I have not been able to get that to happen, and apparently it's not happening here either. If anybody has any idea why that happens, it's a minor inconvenience, but it'd be nice to know. It'd be nice to be able to fix that, and I'll post an update if anybody is able to figure it out. But it's like I said, it's a minor inconvenience. We'd have to combine these 2 anyways, but when you're doing like an even number of shulker boxes, it's frustrating when you get an extra shulker box at the end. But at this point, everything appears to be working, so you can go ahead and just smelt more items if you wanted. That's actually not a full shulker box. There we go. So we can do like 4 shulker boxes and test it all out, and everything should be working fine. So that's all there is to it. Hopefully everything worked properly for you, or you were able to figure out what was going wrong. If you're still having issues, you're welcome to comment in this video, or you can jump on the Discord. There's a link in the description. Let me know if you have any problems. But otherwise, thank you very much for watching. Hope you had a good one. Take it easy.